Our guest tonight is Mr. Jesse Petrilla. He is the founder of the United American Committee. He came back from his visit to Kosovo and Bosnia in June 2007, and this is the reason why we have Mr. Petrilla online with us tonight. Mr. Petrilla, welcome to Monday's Encounter. You are the founder of the United American Committee. Please tell us, what is the United American Committee?
The UMC is really a grassroots organization that is full of dedicated Americans, and not only Americans, just people all over the world. It's starting to become an international movement against Islamic radicalism, and it's pretty much bringing the war on terror to the grassroots level, meaning anybody can participate in it and help with educating others on the threats that we're facing, and holding rallies and conferences and all kinds of ways to get people involved in the war on terror and at the average level, because a lot of people after 9/11 felt pretty helpless, where they couldn't do a whole lot, and this really gives them something to do and a way to help out.
Mr. Petrilla, in your work with the United American Committee, you're trying to educate the public about the radical Islam, and in that sense, you went to Kosovo and Bosnia to see how Islamization of the once Christian land is taking place. Please tell us more about your visit to Kosovo and Bosnia.
Yeah, I went to Kosovo and Bosnia and met with a number of people to see the situation there, because that's something that I could easily see happening in North America within the next 50 to 100 years, if not sooner, because of Islamic radicalism and far leftist policies. Dearborn, Michigan is a place that I'm sure you're familiar with, where there's a growing Muslim population, and they're getting emboldened enough, and they're only at 30% of the population there right now, but they're getting emboldened enough to where they're holding Hezbollah rallies and demanding for Sharia law in America, and I could only imagine if they get over 50% in that region, what they'd be demanding. And it's very similar what happened in Kosovo, where the Muslims get the majority, and then they start wanting their own independent Islamic state, and it's pretty ludicrous that our politicians would support something like that simply because they have the majority, whereas you ask any of the politicians if they would want an independent Muslim state in Michigan, because the Muslims may have the majority in certain regions someday, they would say no. So it's pretty hypocritical on the part of many of our politicians.
What did you see in Kosovo? Did you meet with Serbs there?
I did. I went to Gračanica, which is a monastery there that's very famous, and so just saw how the Christians are forced to live because they're afraid of radical intimidation from the radical Muslims there, and afraid of death and violence. And these are just nuns that just want to live their life, and they're forced to live in this monastery that looks more like a military compound with huge cement walls around it, and guarded by international forces, and it's just very tragic to see. And I wrote an article in Front Page Magazine that I think you read. Mm-hmm. That mentioned that someday will the Christians in America have to live like that. It's very scary, because Kosovo was just not too long ago, a few hundred years ago, was really the heart of Christianity in the region, and it has all these ancient monasteries and churches, and it's just very tragic to see what's happened in such a short period of time.
Well, Albanians from Kosovo say that they are not Islamic extremists and they are not radicals, and they just want their own country there.
Well, the only reason they aren't showing, because granted they aren't as extreme in appearance, but the radicalization is getting there. The only reason why the generation that we see of Kosovo Albanians right now are not as vocal as extremists as you see in Afghanistan or other places, is because certainly there are some that are, but The only reason is because of years of communist oppression that oppressed all religion and religious expression in the region for a couple generations. And then, but all it takes now is that I'm certainly not defending communism at all, but that's the only reason why they were like that. Now that communism inevitably was taken away, it was destroyed. You have a society that's growing in radicalism, because anytime you give an Islamic country, not a country, but an Islamic people, democracy, they'll eventually, the Wahhabis and other extremist elements come in, and they start to grow, and they really they use it as an opportunity to expand their extremist views and demand for Islamic law, and that's what we're seeing there right now. With I saw the Saudi Arabian flag on more than one occasion when I was there, and it's pretty scary there, right there in southern Europe, that we'd have such an extremist element infiltrating into the Western society.
Are you saying that it is increased visibility of extreme Islamic groups in Kosovo right now?
Yeah, it's Wahhabism, absolutely. There's the Wahhabi Saudis, which Wahhabism is it's really fundamental Islam. It's nothing different. It's just they practice Islam to a T. They try to take everything literal out of the Quran, and if you practice Islam fundamentally, you're going to be an extremist. So that's what they're doing, and it's really, they come in there and they're dumping all their oil money and their petrodollars into building these great big Wahhabi mosques and madrasas, the Islamic schools, and just radicalizing the society, because they're taking these Muslims, like I said, that were not really practicing for many years. Because even in Albania, the Muslims there are very, it's different only because they were under oppression from communists for a couple generations, and now that they have quote unquote democracy, they're starting to show their true faces and coming out, and the extremist elements are really growing within there, because they're starting to become more Islamicized, and that's what's happening. So, and the Saudis are certainly just adding fuel to the fire and really growing these extremist elements right there.
It seems as if these radical Islamic groups have approval by the Kosovo and Bosnian government in the region.
Oh yeah, that's what I heard is that from meeting with some of the Serbian leaders and other people. Even I heard this from a Muslim in Bosnia who I met with, that was telling me all about the leaders of the region, the Muslim leaders of the entire region, Bosnia and Kosovo and all around there. The leaders in the Islamic society during the war, they were the ones who were sending pleas to the Taliban and other extremist regimes, asking for jihad fighters to come. They were sending pleas saying, send your jihad fighters, come on over here and help fight the jihad against the Christian Serbs and against the Catholic Croatians. And the infidels, that's what they believed, that it was a big jihad that was going on, and they wanted all their jihad fighters, the buddies, to come over from Afghanistan and wherever. And that's what happened. Then they sent all these jihad fighters, and now that the war is over, the leadership is still there. They're the ones that are getting into power, and then they claim whenever anybody says, hey, what about all the Muslim terrorists during the war that were doing beheadings of Christians and terrorist war crimes? And they say, oh, those were just foreign fighters. Those were foreign fighters, and that's the excuse they use, when in fact they were the ones who invited the foreign fighters in and pled with governments like the Taliban to send them.
Did you have a chance to talk to any of the UN officials there in Kosovo?
Not in Kosovo, but in Bosnia.
How do they react to this infiltration of radical Islam in Bosnia and Kosovo, that is in heart of Europe?
They're brainwashed. It's just amazing. It's just amazing how much brainwashing the military gets. But you ask them straight up, you say, hey, who are you dealing with whenever, now that the war is over, whenever there's any military action required of the UN there, who is it involving? Is it involving the Christians or is it involving the Muslims? And every single one of them, they say, hey, just about is involving the Muslims. It's all the gangs, Muslim gangs, and participating in drug trafficking and human trafficking and different things that are going on in the mountains there. That there's no Serbian aggressors that they're fighting against. It's all radical Muslims. Yet they continue to say, oh, what about? Oh, there was the genocide and all kinds of things going on that are just, for the most part, complete fabrications. Muslims killing Christians in Darfur, yet we do nothing. And in Kosovo we have radical terrorist groups with human trafficking and drug smuggling and al-Qaeda setting up camp in the hills there and all.